Good afternoon and welcome to today's event. I'm your host, I'm Frankie, and I'm going to be kind of comparing the next kind of 45 minutes where we're going to look at the M&D and Veteran Cyber Academy. We're going to introduce some great panel speakers. We're going to have some great conversations. I just got a message there just to give it a minute or two for people to join in. So we'll kind of wait for that to kind of happen. So around 45 minutes, we're going to cover some amazing topics and we're going to really understand what the M&D and Veteran Cyber Academy is, how it works, where the certifications fit in, where the wraparound service from employer relationships and CV support and all this amazing stuff kind of happens, and, you know, kind of where the magic is going to happen going forward. So hopefully we're kind of online now. Hopefully people have joined. We're kind of ready to go. I have a little bit of housekeeping before we start. So we're using StreamYard as a platform. It's pretty cool. It's all kind of live on LinkedIn, which is amazing as well. If you have any questions throughout, we have a number of the team kind of sat seamlessly in the background that we can't see, but they're monitoring the chat. They're monitoring all of the interactions that we have within the different platforms. So please, if you have any questions, please fire them into the team. It's like Sky News. I get a little message in my ear to say, "Oh, Frankie, great question coming in," and we'll kind of feed that into the session. There's a bit of time at the end as well where we'll do a bit of a Q&A as always. So if your question doesn't get kind of talked about throughout the session, fear not, don't panic. We'll add it into the Q&A piece at the end where we'll spend a bit of time going through specific topics and specific subjects. As I mentioned, my name is Frankie. I'm the hostess with the mostess for today. And I guess before we kind of start, we say, well, why are we here? You know, what is happening? Why this MOD and Veteran Cyber Academy? Well, I am ex-military. I know it doesn't look like it, but yeah, I was in the MOD for quite a long time. And when I moved out into the commercial world, it was different, right? It was a change. It was certainly something I'd never kind of experienced before. 24 years within that kind of service industry. I had to self-motivate. I had to look at what was happening in the world. And a lot of that I kind of had to do myself. And yeah, you know, I made mistakes, got things right, got things wrong. Would I do it again differently? Yeah, geez, 100%. So I set the MOD and Veteran Cyber Academy up to support roles into information and cybersecurity, because it's a minefield, right? It's such a broad area. It's such an amazing profession to be in. But I think having that support and having that advice is really, really key to this. Now, I don't do it alone 100%, which is why I've got an amazing gold panel members sat with me today, so within the industry and the kind of organizations that we have. So we have Luke from CREST, Luke from CompTIA, and Harry from Vantage Military Solutions. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves right now so we can kind of understand where they are and kind of who they are and what they're doing. So I'm going to come to Andy first. Andy, welcome. Thanks very much for joining me, buddy.
Thanks, Frankie. So yeah, welcome all. My name's Andy Woolhead. I've been at CREST for a couple of years now as head of cyber skills and certifications. Prior to that, I was at SANS Business Development. I was a salesman. That was my first job outside. And I spent 24 years in the Navy. Most of it, I was in the warfare branch. Most of it was spent at sea. And then towards the tail end of my career, I was really fortunate to move into cyber, where I was running the sort of MOD uniform program, how to upskill military personnel into cyber capability across single service and joint capabilities. And that really was the catalyst for me to stop and think that there's an opportunity outside. So I jumped 7 years ago now, and never looked back.
Andy, amazing and brilliant. Thanks very much for being on the panel today. Your advice and guidance and support is going to be, you know, really, really key to everything we do. Luke, I'm going to come to you next from CompTIA. How are you, buddy?
Brilliant. I'm well, thanks, Frankie. Thanks for having us on here. It's an absolute pleasure. Good afternoon to everyone. As Frankie's just said, my name's Luke, and I'm part of the team here at CompTIA. I'm one of the senior managers. Been here for just over 8 years now, so part of the furniture. But I've had the pleasure of working and supporting Blue Screen on their partnership and journey with us over the years. You know, we're really excited to be able to support Frankie and the rest of the team's initiative here in terms of aligning with our mission here at CompTIA, which is getting a skilled workforce into industry. and working within the ecosystem, working both with the fantastic organisations such as Blue Screen, who are creating the talent pipeline, but we're also engaging and working directly with commercial and corporate organisations, because we need that industry demand for the skill sets as well. And both of these are kind of that yin and yang effect that helps us address the skills gap, which I'm sure everyone has heard about. There's a huge demand for skilled professionals within the industry at the moment, and by working with Frankie and the team, we're unlocking potential and empowering people like yourselves to gain the skills and, most importantly, go and get jobs within industry. So a little bit about me. What can I tell you about myself that's not work related? Well, like Frankie, I'm a runner. I'm a marathon runner, and I've got a marathon which I'm completely unprepared for coming up in October. So wish me luck, guys.
Luke, thank you very much. As always, a pleasure to have you on these and really, really valuable insights to everything that we do, certainly within the CompTIA space and the certification world. So thanks very much. And finally, I have Harry sat within the call as well, all the way from Vantage Military Talent Exchange. Harry, welcome. How are you, buddy?
Thank you very much, Frankie. Very good, mate. Very good. Very pleased, and thanks for having me along with the chaps here and there. Luke, I'll pick you up that afterwards about the marathon, mate. Because if it's October, it could be Lisbon Marathon, and I blagged that last year and almost died.
Last year, the heat was unbelievable.
Oh, it was right. We're definitely gonna pick that one up.
We'll take that offline.
But no, honestly, thank you for having me here, chaps. So as Frankie said, I work at Vantage and head up operations here. Fairly new to my role, actually. I've been in the position about 3 months. So joined Vantage to head up operations and really kind of just take our operations to the next level. We're a very kind of unique business in terms of obviously working in the recruitment world. So we sit in that kind of position between CREST, CompTIA, employers, and people looking for roles in there. So we really do hear it from kind of all angles. And it's something that I've always been a big advocate about because, as the chaps mentioned beforehand, there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of terrible information, a lot of terrible advice. It's really pushing people down to kind of certifications and courses to spend money that some people might not have. So the chaps at CompTIA and CREST and working with Bit Group as well really do kind of open those avenues in an affordable and kind of pragmatic approach as well. So what I do is sit in the middle of that and kind of offer out obviously client solutions to our client base, providing sort of the personnel going into those from the military that working with businesses that see the real kind of value of people coming from that veteran community, in service, military spouses, really the whole sort of veteran and military kind of family there. So really looking forward to chaps, and obviously very fitting day to do it and get the sort of information out there as well.
Yeah, Harry, an absolute pleasure to have you on. And yeah, one of the big key things we kind of mentioned here is the purpose of this kind of MOD Academy is it's that wraparound service. You know, I'm a training provider. I do commercial training, NELCAS training, MOD training. That's great. I got the certificate providers to talk about their roles and where the certificates fit within the industry. And then we got Harry from the Military Exchange to actually place you guys and girls into positions after you've kind of done the training and all the support with us. And that's the whole piece that I'm certainly trying to deliver as part of this MOD Academy. And yeah, it's D-Day, right? It's the 80th anniversary today, and certainly that changed the future of kind of what the landscape looks. So hopefully after today, we can change your future, right? And we can look at how you can develop your skills within InfoSec, cybersecurity, move into those amazing roles and understand kind of what they are. I think one of the key points that Harry picked up there was about advice and guidance. There is a lot of advice and there is a lot of guidance, and it's knowing, you know, kind of when to take it, when not to take it. And again, with a kind of focal point to look at that. So I want to come to you first, Luke, talking about certifications within the program and why certainly I've looked at embedding CompTIA and CREST within that kind of sphere. Looking at Security Plus then from a certification, how is that, how those looking to transition into this amazing world of information security?
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Frankie. So for those of you that are unaware, you know, CompTIA, we're a non-profit organisation, okay, and we're a global organisation. I'm joining from London here today, but we're headquartered in Chicago, but we have offices in South Africa, Berlin, you know, you name it, all over the world. And I think, you know, as a non-profit organisation, we provide vendor-neutral skills, okay. Now, vendor-neutral means that we're not tied to one type of specific vendor. We are training people for job role job role specifically. So each of our certifications align to job roles. For example, the Security Plus is aligned to a security engineer. And when we create these certifications, or if we refresh them as we do every 3 years to make sure they're still relevant, we know how fast-paced the IT industry is. We will bring in subject matter experts, so people doing the jobs, people hiring for those jobs, people managing those jobs, and they will do a job task analysis, so the day in the life of a security engineer. And then we need to understand, well, what skills do they need to understand? What technologies do they need to understand? What is being used in the workplace to make them employable? And with the Security Plus, what we're doing here is it's cybersecurity 101. Okay, so we are teaching any budding future cybersecurity professional the absolute basics, and basics is dumbing it down, but we're giving them a platform for them to go and succeed and to go and specialize. Okay, quite often what we find through speaking within our ecosystem, whether we're engaging AstraZeneca or engaging with the MOD or Department of Defense, we often quite find that the feedback is that everything's based on the cloud these days. Everything tends, or people are migrating to the cloud, but this is constantly changing. Yeah, it's constantly being updated, new services being brought in, etc. And what we're finding is leaders are telling us that if the IT professionals don't have that platform, that foundational knowledge, okay, understanding the principal concepts, they're going to become unstuck very, very quickly. So it's all well and good jumping in at the high end and getting the skills. It's achievable, you can do it. But what you're going to find is later on down the line, you're going to get found out for where you have to be agile and you have to adapt, improvise, adapt, overcome, as a famous military chap once said. You need to have that platform of understanding. And what Security Plus does is it gives you that platform within the cybersecurity space.
Luke, and I think that's really key, that kind of emphasis there of, just jumping in at step 5 or step 6 of the ladder. Yeah, you might be able to do it, but those steps that you've missed out, they're going to come back to haunt you at some point going forward. Actually, starting at stage 1, rung 1, gives you that much solid foundation, and then you can really then decide kind of where to pivot after that. Andy, I'm going to come to you next, talking about the CPSA, right? And how does that, from a service leaver's perspective, why should we look at that? How does that transition? How does that help us?
Yeah, I echo everything that Luke's just said, particularly with the foundational level knowledge. If you're looking to get into any discipline, whether it's threat intelligence, pen testing, or defensive, that foundational level of knowledge is absolutely critical to success. And the CPSA, I'd probably pitch it a little bit slightly differently to the Sec Plus, because it's within our pen testing curriculum, but it's still an entry level exam. It gets you onto the first rung of the ladder. It's 2-hour multiple choice exam available in Pearson VUE test centres, and it looks at the basics of infrastructure and app vulnerability scans, Unix, web testing techniques, databases, etc. And whilst it assumes sort of 2 years within the industry, I wouldn't say that you need to have done that. There's plenty of ways to learn and train, as you'll soon see through Frankie's training course, of how to achieve success. So what it does do is open doors to follow on certifications if pen testing is the route you wish to follow. The next one up from the CPSA is called the CRT, Check Registered Pen Test. If you achieve that, and I'm sure most of our audience will be aware of Check. Check is a program run by the NCSC and administered by the Cybersecurity Council that gets you into pen testing critical national infrastructure and government organisations. So that's the license to operate, if you will, as a Check team member. Moving on from that, you can then, with the certified level exams, you then get on to Check team leader. So these are regulated exams that provide access to certain programs that are run by the UK government and beyond as well. So the CPSA pen testing, first rung of the ladder, and I wouldn't say you'd pitch them against Sec Plus in any way, shape, or form. I think they're complementary, and probably exactly why Frankie's chosen them.
And and I think one of the key things I want to pull out from what you've just said there, and I think it's really important, is that it gives you that a opportunity to move into any kind of area in any kind of industry specific place that you want to be. We'll talk about myths later on, and I got some amazing myths about information and cybersecurity kind of roles and job functions. But actually, that CPSA, if you want to move into that world of pen testing, there is a pathway, and you don't just do that kind of course, you don't just do that certification, and that's your learning journey finished, right? Actually, it allows you to then progress and move and advance your career as you go through the different roles. So I think that's really, really key. And then finally, I want to come to you, Harry, because now, there's a reason what we looked at, or certainly I looked at CompTIA and I looked at the CREST certifications. How do they fit into the roles that you're looking for right now? Because ultimately, that's the goal for me. MOD veteran service leavers, they come to us, we do some amazing training, we combine it all together, great value for money, great delivery. But at the end piece, where's the jobs, man? Where are we going to go?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I was almost kind of expecting to come on here and be a bit of devil's advocate for the kind of certification courses kind of world. But what the chaps have said there is like nail on the head. There are pathways into sort of industry outside of doing certifications. There are some certifications that you absolutely probably do not need, will not even look at, but we push towards that, spend thousands of pounds on there. Courses like CREST and CompTIA and Security Plus, they really do give that kind of foundational level, more so than just the skill set. So they give you that kind of wider view on there. And it's invaluable. I mean, Andy would probably be the best person yourself there, Frankie, to sort of say about this, about that transitionary period from the military into sort of civilian life. It's a real kind of change. And everyone I've spoken to in there, it's almost a bit like they've done this service and now what is the next step? So if you can get that kind of understanding, the knowledge, speaking to the right people as well, just to kind of get through the weeds, that is really what it is. And in terms of kind of roles that look for it, again, to saying that some businesses and some organizations, some markets, you absolutely will too. I mean, where Andy touched on there for sort of CREST and working in the government space, in the pen testing world, those are sort of regulations you have to go through there. So obviously going through those panels, it will lead to a more kind of direct route into employment post there. But it's not to say, obviously, if you don't want to go down that route or you can't sort of afford to go into that route at this present in time, it's not sort of the cutoff in there. But it really does give those kind of skills there. So on the CompTIA side there, worked heavily with sort of people, especially in the US, where I did a lot of work with the US Navy and the Marine Corps over there. CompTIA is really sort of well regarded as that kind of baseline level for just getting in there, getting the skills, knowing what it is. It's a bit like when you look in the recruitment world as well, to sort of play it back to myself, is you have someone in that's come straight out of university or straight out of college, straight out of military, whatever it is, do not know what it is there. You've got to try as many things as possible. It's the exact same security. Speaking to someone that's been in logistics beforehand and then knows that skill set might be good in the cyber world, but they don't really know how. And often when I sort of sit down, I imagine you guys as well, when you speak to them, there's a lot of really transferable skills from when you're in an active war zone and there's bombs going off and you manage to get things done. It's quite easy to sit in an instant response room and look at sort of numbers and lights going off. So it's all those getting things, get a good feel for it, work your way through, and then certainly having things like CREST behind you, check. CompTIA Plus on there from the very off. They will certainly give you a good route into there, good knowledge of what it is to find out what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. And then the types of roles are the kind of ones that mentioned in there, depending on what level we're going in terms of, is it a career change or very from the off? But those foundation kind of entry level roles, be it in pen testing, consultancy and GRC, which is a very kind of applicable world, a good world to sort of get into that is a bit more kind of generalistic in terms of what, and lets you sort of position yourself, be it more technical or more consulting. And then obviously, like Luke mentioned, the sort of security engineering there, they give you those kind of real world skills of how to deal with people outside of the military and how to sort of work with them, but also the kind of the technical skills in there to end up in those jobs. And that's what you want, is you don't want to get into a sort of program where it is just taking your money and it's really not giving you the value in there. But if there's clear pathway, clear program, exactly like what we have here with the kind of offering on show, then that's where you're going to see real value and just makes a lot of connections, which is the main thing.
Yeah, and I think, Harry, one of the certainly things that you mentioned there was this word enjoy, right? It's about enjoying that role and then enjoying that job. And I think when we get kind of encompassed within this world of information security, there is so many jobs, there is so many things that we see and we go, well, I want to do that. Am I going to enjoy it? I don't know. How much is it going to cost to have a go at that and to find out if I do actually enjoy it? And sometimes that kind of revenue that you've kind of invested might not kind of come back. So I think one of the key things there is you have to enjoy what we do, right? And I think within the information security world, that is key to everything that we do, which leads me on nicely to this thing called the UK Cybersecurity Council, which I think is important because when we talk about career pathways and we talk about the next steps from this, from the purpose of this academy is to get us into those InfoSec cybersecurity roles, but every single one of us is going to have a journey, right? Everyone is going to have an end and a position that they want to go to. And when we talk about advice and guidance, we know we're littered with advice and guidance from seamlessly every corner of the room right now. When we talk about the UK Cybersecurity Council, then they have a number of pathways, which is nice and simple, nice and defined. And actually, those roles fit very, very well within the different positions that we're looking at. So, Andy, I just want to come to you first. From a UK Cybersecurity Council perspective, where did CREST fit into that space? Oh, you're on mute. He's excited.
We work in an unregulated environment, which is causing us all headaches. When I first started looking for a role outside the military, I was looking, and I at the time and this is a good piece of advice, by the way, blag as much out in the military as you can before you leave in terms of courses and certifications and get them to pay for you. So I was looking at job descriptions and I was seeing SEC Plus, CISP, CREST, CISM, SANS, and it didn't even specify which one of the 40 SANS certifications you needed. So this is either really lazy recruiting, or they were casting their net so wide that they'd hopefully pick up somebody with a cert along the way. So that just sort of paints the picture of the mire that we're in terms of the number of certifications and the lack of job pathways and career pathways, etc., etc. So the Cybersecurity Council, I've been involved with them for over 5 years now. They've been stood up as an independent body to professionalize the industry. And certifications and standards are absolutely part of that. CREST are engaged with the Cybersecurity Council in their chartership program. And ultimately, their aim is to try and professionalize the industry by bringing all these certs together. What do they mean? What's their value? Where do they fit into the big picture? And at the moment, we're leading with the pen testing pathway. So if you can draw an analogy with chartered accountants and chartered engineers, that's the route the council are following. We're going to have chartered cyber practitioners, principal and practitioners, so at 3 different levels. And you're going to have take an exam, which is going to prove your technical competence, and then a follow-on, either an interview or an attestation form, which looks at your managerial skills, your budgetary experience, etc., etc. And once you've applied, you'll be awarded either a chartership principal or practitioner. So what does that mean? Is it a barrier to entry? Well, we're breaking new ground with the Cybersecurity Council. It's not quite as simple as accountancy, or even if you draw an analogy with a doctor, whether you're a surgeon or an oncologist or a pediatrician, whatever it might be. It's slightly different because the pathways to entry are different. There isn't a cyber A level. Cyber degrees are questionable, how much hands-on experience you're getting from them. And people have learned without any certifications whatsoever. So there is a nuanced difference to coming into cyber. But their ambition is great. It's fantastic. I think it's what we all need. I think there's still maturity around the career pathways. That's not entirely clear. Where does somebody start? Where can somebody progress to? I think the world's your oyster. And let's not forget, you do not have to be technical in this space. I'm certainly not. And there's a job for everyone, whether it's policy and strategy or recruiting or sales or certifications like I do, as well as building and consulting capabilities. So yeah, there's a lot to come from the Cybersecurity Council. One of the things that I think is a real value proposition to what they're doing, which was announced very recently at Cyber UK, is all the regulators have got behind this. So it's going to be a license to practice sooner or later. You're going to have one of the chartership accreditations to go and practice in CNI, whether it's pen testing or consulting. And we can see this happening globally, because let's not forget, you don't need to limit your employment opportunities just to the UK. It's the same problem globally. And if you do look abroad, there's a lot of professionalization and standardization happening all over the world at the moment.
Yeah, and I think one of the one of the big key topics there is about this purpose of not being technical, and I think that's a great myth. We haven't got onto myths yet, but within the myth of the infosec and the cybersecurity world, you have to be super technical all of the time. And reality is, when we look at that cybersecurity council, we look at the various pathways. There are some non-technical pathways within there, right? And I think that's really, really important and key. Luke, I want to come to you as well, because I know from the UK Cybersecurity Council, also involved from a CompTIA perspective. Kind of where do you fit within that space as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Frankie. I think, look, I don't really have much more to add because Andy's pretty much stolen all the headlines there in terms of, and absolutely valid, great points, which, we're completely aligned with and are on board with. I think, there's a complete lack of regulation, and the UK Cybersecurity Council are trying to take the reins on this at the moment. And obviously the government now looks to them and are aligning to their framework and mappings through to 2025 now, which is fantastic. And we also, like CREST, have a relationship with the UK Cybersecurity Council where they recognise our certifications. And again, Andy pointed to, the regulators now are onboarding their own pathways off the back of the guidance from the UK Cybersecurity Council. And that is, again, like Andy said, we're seeing stuff like this being installed around the world, and in Europe particularly, you have things like the NIS2 framework, which is coming in, which is bringing in accountability for cybersecurity skills for personnel, for organisations. Now, of course, we are no longer part of the EU, but is it going to affect us? You're absolutely right, it will. But we are also part of that NIS2. There was a NIS1. Okay, and that is still part of our legislation because that came in before Brexit. Okay, and that is where the government, so the Department for DCIT, have put the onus on the regulators. The regulators to implement those skills. And guess what? They are mapping to the UK cybersecurity framework as well, which CREST and CompTIA are both on. So what we're seeing is, whilst there is no kind of, as Andy say, no firm kind of regulation, so to speak, it is starting to come in, and we are getting to a point now where you are going to need these certifications to be able to work in a lot of these industries or work with employers who have to adhere to these directives, whether they're coming out of the UK or whether they're coming out of different parts of the world as well.
No, and I think that's key for what you mentioned, and I'm going to feed this into to Harry as well, because certifications, chartership, CompTIA, CREST, all of these different environments. When we have candidates looking to interview, and obviously they come to yourselves, you've got these amazing roles to be filled. How do they fit within the interview process? How does that kind of look? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they indifferent? Is it just something to talk about, or actually do they add that kind of kudos and that value as well to that individual?
Yeah, it's a real interesting one, and it's something you kind of need to take a pinch of salt from who you hear it to be honest. Having a certification and having a qualification will never be a detriment to yourself. It will always show that you're willing to go the extra mile, or you're willing to sort of look outside of the pragmatic interview process or whatever it is, especially if you're coming in from an entry level. It really shows that kind of extra level of like determination to get into the field and shows your kind of hunger for it. So I'll never say that it's a negative on there. But then saying that, there's some people I know that have been in the industry for 40, 50 years that decided not even to finish high school and get straight into industry. There's some that exactly the same have been in it through the time, and they get their certifications redone every couple of years when they come out again. So there's some people that are so advocate for it, and exactly the same again in terms of employers. Some businesses will say that you need CISSP, you need CompTIA plus, and we won't look at profiles about that, but that's kind of on their side. On the flip side, others will say that it's not on there. So what I would say though is and what the chaps are alluding to there in terms of the regulation is what's really needed is when working with kind of bodies and organizations like what we have on here that see the value on the bottom side and aren't just doing it to sort of make a fee and sell their kind of solutions out there. That's the real benefit. Those are the kind of organizations, certifications that these businesses are looking at. So like your CREST, your CompTIA, BIT training, like MOD training services, they see the value in it because it really does add value just outside, not just in terms of skill set, technical skill set, but the real kind of whole piece on there. And sort of going back to what we were saying before, is where it's you've got to try a few things, especially if you're maybe a career switcher going into the industry sort of after the service and you've done something else and then you're changing. So you're not going to be an 18-year-old going to there's no sort of one size that fits all. And it really does sort of depend in there. But at the very kind of base level to answer it, like it will always give you that plus. It will always be like a kind of shiny badge on there as well. And like I say, working ones where they do really give you the kind of whole width and breadth, it is going to be a bonus on there. Some businesses will say you need it. Some will say they don't look at it. So yeah, it's one of those to really kind of, obviously when you're looking for the jobs and speaking to recruiters like myself, speak to them, make sure they know that the kind of value in it. Don't just let them say chuck it at you, because I've seen profiles and individuals in the past where they're trying to break it into there and they're struggling to break in, maybe not sort of knocking on the right doors and speaking to the right people, and they've spent thousands of pounds on about 20 different certifications that just aren't helping at all. And then on the other side, someone might just knock on the right person's door and get into sort of an apprenticeship. So it's something that will certainly help, and it's always a question to speak, a topic to chat about, and a topic to kind of change your head in there. So I'd 100% sort of recommend certainly having a chat with the kind of organisations we've got on here.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. Like you said there, it's about having that interaction and asking that advice from real people, right? You know, people in the industry, people from that commercial world. What do I need? Speak to employers before kind of taking that, maybe that little bit of an assumption of yourself to do all of these certifications. Actually, what is it you want? What is it what we want me to achieve? And then kind of look at that from a career pathway. Andy, I want to come to yourself, because obviously as an ex-military, you kind of moved that into the commercial world, into that civilian world. It's a different language, right? We have our own kind of made up words. We have our own made up phrases, which are great whilst we're serving in the military. When we leave, sometimes a little bit maybe lost within our kind of that civilian kind of world. How did you move in? What kind of experience? How can you kind of support and give advice and guidance on how to move into that world? He's on mute.
He's done it again. I'd really say, don't underestimate or take for granted what you do in the military day to day. Being on time, being smart, being disciplined, being trustworthy, being able to brief concisely and effectively, call them all out and provide examples. You know, and when you're writing your CV, Harry will be able to provide more advice on this. Don't write chief of staff. Right, chief operating officer, do that translation into what somebody's going to understand, and star it. Situation, task, what was your action and what was the result? You know, make sure that you're calling them all out so people know. Don't use the TLAs like Frankie said. If you've worked in 591 or 13 Sigma Regiment or MCSU, spell it out. It was instant response. It was threat intelligence. It was offensive pen testing. Think about the commercials. It's not something anybody in the military, or many of us in the military, really had much of experience on. You will be employed in the commercial arena to make money for that organization in some way, shape or form. How are you going to do that? Have a think about that. And how will you make a difference with the skills that you have? Have you worked with a budget before? Not many of us had in the military. And so might need to use some imagination in articulating that. One area I've come across is that they just think that we just order people about. There's no management. So you really need to educate the examples of management, and perhaps more importantly, leadership. Make that distinction between leadership and management, and how important leadership is in the military. They're not mutually exclusive, of course. You know, leaders instill confidence and belief in their teams to become better and to contribute to a common set of objectives. You know, whereas management's planning and organisation of that. We've all done it in the military. It's all been done in the civvy street. It's just joining that up and making that language. I think a lot of us, I can't talk for Frankie, but we've underestimated ourselves in that transition, not having the confidence to shout about our achievements in the military and how they can be translated. And I don't think that's out of modesty, but because it's just normal and expected behaviour in the military, going above and beyond, using the initiative. So I'd really try and pick out as many of those examples and really bring them to life and let your future employers know about them.
Yeah, and I think that's really key what you said there, Andy. It's looking at what we have, and we talked about this thing about technical and non-technical, right? And kind of everything we just mentioned there are kind of non-technical type skills, but they are so important in what we're doing and how we work in this infosec in cybersecurity world. And Luke, I just want to come to you talking about real skills. How do they fit from a CompTIA? How do you look at those type of skills, things like problem solving in this kind of the information security roles that we talk about?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Frankie. Yeah, look, guys, certificate, it's the chicken and egg thing. It's experience or certifications. Okay, which one comes first? And quite often, certifications are the currency of employment, as we often quite refer to them, because what it does is it tells the employer that you're able to do this job. But you need to position yourself as a unicorn where you have the experience as well. And as a career changer or a career starter, obviously you don't have that. So what CompTIA are doing is we are preparing, we're not training people to pass certifications, we're training people to be job ready. Okay, and we do that again, referring back to, as I talked about the methodology as to how we create these certifications. We do the day in the life of a security engineer. So talking about Security Plus, we're looking about what kind of threats are out there. We're talking about identity and access management. We're talking about the operations, the processes, introduction into digital forensics, etc., stuff like that. And how are we actually doing that? Well, in combination with Frankie and the fantastic delivery that they've got on Blue Screen is, yes, we have that knowledge acquisition. So we actually have to study the knowledge, okay? And then that's whether that's in a classroom or e-learning, however that's done. It's the practical application. Okay, so it's applying those skills, and that can be done in the form of labs, exact questions, etc., things like that. And with a CompTIA exam, it's a mixture of multiple choice questions, but you've got a 1 in 4 chance of getting that right anyway, yeah? So we also have performance-based questions, and this is where you're actually having to problem solve and apply the skill sets which you've learned on the training to demonstrate that you are of value to an organization and that you can solve those problems, okay, using the skill sets and the tools which you have learned on the training. So that again, if I can hammer one thing home, is we're training people to be ready for so that they can walk in and be competent and be, most importantly, confident at the job as well. And I think, as well, sorry if I to go on, but, I think there's also an element of managing expectations here. So it might be that you're coming from a military background where you haven't had too much tech experience, okay, but you know it's a direction you want to go in, and my word, the industry needs you as well, please. But, it's also a case of, well, don't always expect to kind of jump straight in at that cybersecurity, security engineer level. Sometimes what you need to do, going back to this unicorn in terms of having experience and having certifications, sometimes you need to take a step back and maybe take, that first job in IT, working on a help desk. Now, there's nothing wrong with being overqualified for it from a certification perspective, but you need somewhere to cut your teeth as well. Yeah, you need somewhere where you're going to, yes, you're learning it on the job, and we're giving you all the experience and practical application, but sometimes you actually need to be in it and you need to be living it. And we all know how we learn. It's by making mistakes, right? So it's by being in that kind of that first line support, entry level. And then what you'll find is by having CompTIA or CREST certifications in that role, my word, you're going to get promoted quickly, but you need to kind of have that foot in the door at that first stage. So just kind of wanted to throw that into the conversation as well.
No, and I love the PBQs. I love the performance-based questions. The fact that you have to prove that you know it and you can evidence that you know it, as opposed to, as you said, kind of picking one of those specific questions and answers. That's really key. That leads me nicely onto Harry, because we talk about technical certs, we talk about the different roles that Luke's mentioned there. Let's talk money, honey, right? Let's talk about the kind of the finance incentives that there is. We see the big jobs advertised, we see the huge paychecks available to us. What does it look like in the kind of the InfoSec world right now? What is that expectation? I think that's really, really key to kind of within that service leaver space.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Luke really hit it nail on the head there. I'd say a lot of kind of the world, and maybe a bit of the kind of negativity about the kind of certs and certification world as well, that you get from inside the sort of industry, is there is an expectation that if I do this kind of course, I'm going to be a security engineer in 6 months' time, and I'm going to be working about, and it's just not like that. Like, it's like anything, you really do, like you say, have to cut your teeth in there and get that kind of experience in. What it does is it gives you a good understanding and a good eye open to that and lets it in. So on the top end, I mean, in the chest, to put it into there right now, we're literally working on a CREST role with one of our clients who are looking for a team leader there. We're talking around about sort of the 60, 70K in terms of salary mark. So real kind of, and that's 4 or 5 years experience, sort of second kind of service job, I'd say, is where we're looking for in that pool and speaking to people. So it's not like crazy miles away where you're in a real healthy kind of position. Don't get me wrong, to start out with, you may need to work on those kind of help desk roles that Luke started, and not to take anything away from that, because they're some of the craziest places you've been in your life on in the help desk and in sort of the command room on there. So it's really one, but getting up that ladder with the kind of certifications, like Luke said, and like Andy said, they do add that kind of extra bit of pedigree on there, that when you're in these meetings talking about salaries and talking about promotions and whatnot, you can ask for a bit extra. You can ask for 5k on top there, and show that you're in there. Like, I've got the commitment to I'm not just here to sit here and do my job, clock out at 5:30. I've got the wider out there. I'm interested in kind of the industry outside of there, and I'm interested about where my career can go. And that's when you start to have the real conversations that will open up avenues for you. It's an absolute, I mean, we said it at the start, and for a real kind of, it is a minefield out there. There is a lot of noise, a lot of kind of advice that is good or bad in there, but you will have to go through, get to those levels. I'd say on average now, we're looking at kind of the cyber industry is really, it's always something that is interesting. It's going to grow. It's projected to grow massively over the next few years. And it's no sort of lie that from our side, you can see that the kind of recruitment world did have a rocky one post sort of COVID last year, but cyber really sort of held firm and held its ground in there. So as a career to sort of get into for people looking for that, for stability and security, it certainly is one. It's only going to evolve, especially with the kind of development of AI and that sort of world as well. Cyber is going to be at the forefront of that. We're going to see new avenues for attackers to get into businesses, new avenues for attackers to get into government industries. So it's just going to keep getting better, and salary is going to go up in there. The UK and Europe, slightly, I'd say, behind in terms of the kind of US salary rise. They are always sort of higher over there and slightly more inflated. But in terms of kind of industry, when I look at it from a tech industry, cyber is at the kind of top end of that salary sort of mark. So if you were to go into there and forge a career in there, you will see the levels of salary and kind of seniority definitely move quicker. And now when we're in a world where you can't be sat at the back of the office just with the lights on, flickering, making sure nothing happens. Cyber is a front and center kind of position now. Skills from the military, where we're dealing with different sort of logistics, different kind of crisis situations, they're so critical to what that's going to be. And it really is going to help see that kind of military world and cyber world push up even further into the tech space and hold the value it's had. Because it's been something over the years as well for that sort of CISO role where it hasn't got the value that they have in there. Is it a bit of a scapegoat? But there's no sort of denying it. Cyber is at the beating heart of everything now. And if you're not taking it seriously, it's just not going to work out well for the business.
No, and I think I emphasize everything you just kind of said there, Harry. And I think it's really key, and certainly points to pick out of that is that it is still a growing industry, right? Even though we've been talking about InfoSec and cyber for quite a long time, the roles change, technology changes. It's here forever, right? It's never going to go away anymore. We can't just turn the internet off now and go back to life without it, which means then that as that progression moves, in 10, 15 years time, are we going to see even more roles within the Cybersecurity Council, different career pathways that are obviously attracting a different type of requirement and a different type of resource. So I think that's really, really key, and something that I would really reiterate is once we get into this world, and it's such a cool world, right? Because the banner of information and cybersecurity can mean pretty much anything, right? We can kind of add any role we want within there. It allows us the freedom and the flexibility to have a go at this over here. And if I enjoy it, yeah, but there is a career path and there is a route, and I'm going to progress for the rest of my life within there. Or if I decide I'm not quite enjoying that, but I can pick up the bits that I do like and can I move over here. And actually, there's another job over here which is slightly different, but it adds in something else. And if I enjoy that, you know what? Boom, I'm going to go down that road and avenue. So I think that's really, really key. Team, we're into the last couple of minutes. I just want to very quickly talk about kind of myths within the industry. I'll put my hand up right now. I've been in the technology industry for 20 plus years. I've been in cyber quite a while. I don't code and I'm not a pen tester. I've got no interest in pen testing and I've got no interest in coding. Do I still work in information security? Yeah, 100%. So, and I think for me, that's one of the biggest myths that I would kind of push out within there. Andy, myths, what have you got? Unmute.
I've got a lawnmower going on outside my window, so I'm turning it off. It's a really daunting space to get into. I can remember thinking, crumbs, I've had a career manager all my life. He's going to be looking after me, and that I've got to make these decisions myself. The myth is you're not on your own. There are loads of people out there willing to help you. Network, ex-military, recruiters, You know, go and have a talk to Harry, see what's the gaps are in the market. Do your research in terms of you know, what's available. There's so much free resource. You know, you can go to Frankie. There's the guy called Daniel Kelly who hacked Talk. Follow him on LinkedIn. He lists all the free training resources. Probably not helping you, Frankie, but you know, there's loads of stuff out there that you can really get on top with. And just be patient. You know, there are a lot of roles, and whilst people might say, you know, if there are so many gaps in the industry, why is it so difficult to get a job? I don't think it is. You know, I think you've got to be patient. It is competitive. There's no doubt. People will look at you a bit strangely because you're ex-military and they don't quite understand you. You know, talk to Harry. You know, feel free to tap me up. I can give advice. But just be patient, be positive, and you'll absolutely get there.
Brilliant. Luke?
Yeah, look, again, I echo Andy. He's bang on the money. As a non-military person myself, even I can see the connection there and the brotherhoodship in terms of, you know, utilize your network, utilize your contacts. Get busy on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn is your online CV. It's the first thing employers will look at. So make sure that it's professional and it's up to date. And again, mysteries. There's a common misconception that you have to be a rocket scientist or a mathematician to go and work in IT. Absolute codswallop. All right. All you need to do is have patience, as Andy said, okay, and enjoy problem solving and apply yourself. You know, these certifications, they're not easy. Of course they're not, because if they were easy, everyone would be able to do them and the market would be flooded and there'd be no such thing as a skills gap. Okay. So, you know, it's about applying yourself. You know, extracurricular activity you can do as well is find out what's going on in the industry, attend events. There was InfoSec at Excel this week. Go and attend these events. They're free. Go and gain some knowledge because you're demonstrating value when you're in that interview room and you're in front of that employer, because A, you've got your certifications. Okay. B, you've got your military experience. Okay. You've got your connections, and hey, you're actually clued up in terms of what's going on in the industry. You suddenly become a very employable candidate.
Finally, Harry, give us a myth.
A myth. My myth. Do you know what? I'm gonna touch on the point that the chaps make. See, is the big myths you see in the industry, skills gap and all that. You hear it around, and it actually makes me want to bang my head against the wall, because I speak to people day in, day out that are saying they're struggling to find a job, struggling to sort of get into interview stage. So my myth would honestly be to just tell everyone that is watching this and is going to watch it after, like, you are good enough for it. You are worth it. Like, you can do it. Do not let something that says you need 3 years experience or some certification to apply, apply. Even if you apply, they might come back and say, look, it's not for you, but we have this down the line. We can chat to this person there. Speak to people like Luke and Andy, like, learn about where the sort of industry is going. Learn about who's looking like, obviously speak to our guys because we speak to them on the side. So all this kind of information, knowledge sharing there. But just honestly, the main thing, especially for our kind of veteran, military spouse, military leaver kind of community, I'd say 99% of the times when I sit down with someone who say they're struggling to sort of get into role, get that first round, a bit like Andy said in there, I'll be like, right, what's the issue? And they're like, well, I haven't got anything on this job spec. It's an instant response role. They've been in Iraq in the early 2000s with bombs going off around them, like still getting things from A to B, all this crazy stuff. I'm like, well, we just done that. We just turned it into a corporate world. So just do not be put off by if you don't sort of understand the language or can't interpret the language, or if you think it's just a bit out of your reach, like, apply, get into this, speak to as many people as possible. Speak to as many of the kind of certifications and training centers like the chaps we've got on here. They are excellent resources and really good people. Like, I don't have a military background. I've got some family that was in the military beforehand. I did biomedical sciences at university. I got into cybersecurity by speaking to Kevin Kennedy. He won't mind me name dropping in there. He was in the Marine Corps years ago, 8 years ago when I started my career, and I've known him ever since. They will open doors to you, the people in this world. They will happily share knowledge, share information, and just really put a good kind of application in there. So that is my takeaway. Just, you're worth it. You can do it. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise.
Perfect. And Harry, I think what a fitting end for this webinar is, yeah, you are 100% worth it. You have 100% got what it takes to do it. So just do it, right? And just follow that journey and follow that dream. Team, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you with me today. As always, my many thanks within there. So to Andy, Luke and Harry, From the bottom of my heart, thank you. For everyone on the call, if you want to know more about the MOD and Veterans Cyber Academy, please go on to www.thinkbittraining.co.uk. There is a sign up button within the website. If you search under the military part, under the LCAS kind of section, there's a little bit more info in there as well. And again, please sign up there, register for more info, or if any questions or concerns or queries, just reach out to a member of the team. We'll definitely support you. Big drive. My passion is to get everyone within the military kind of into employment, into InfoSec and CyberSec roles. If I can do that, 100% I'm going to be happy. So fingers crossed. This has helped us all today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, see you all soon.
Thanks, Frankie. Thanks, gents. Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck all.
Thanks all.